Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Talk Scottish Football podcast. It is me, Ryan Fitzsimons, joined alongside my wonderful co-host, David. David, how are you doing? David Buick, nice to see
I'm
you.
I'm good. Yeah, I am really good. I'm a
Are
little
you
bit.
really good?
I was
Are
I
you?
was a little bit overwhelmed yesterday because I kind of had my phone was off all day. I had no internet connection, and then I switched it on at about 4:30, and I was like, "Oh my God, what have I
The
missed?"
world has, the world has went into its self-destruction mode, but the world of Scottish football has also went into the same sort of
Well,
mode
you can
because
always rely on Scottish football to bring a distraction, even when there's no
oh
football on
yes,
the
of
pitch.
course. Like we're the only league, we're the only football division in the world that could potentially distract every human being in the country's mind away from an actual epidemic to talk
Mhm.
about disasters and conspiracies and potential wrongdoings. There's we can do everything in the Scottish game to take our minds off what is blatantly one of the biggest things to happen in human history.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. I mean, Dundee have had the whole world in their hands for about
Yep.
since what, Friday.
hmm
Um, and boy, did they, take advantage of that. I think so.
Well, where
Sort of,
we left off on the podcast in the last episode that we did, we were talking about the upcoming. At the time, it was the upcoming vote that would decide the fate of the Scottish football
yeah,
landscape. We would see who would be going up, who would be going down, and the vote was voted for.
it's actually hit me just now how much we've still got to cover. It's been mental.
There's so much, within the space of us recording our last episode to the moment we sit down here. There's been, you can make an individual podcast each and every day about an update on what has happened, about fan reaction, about statements.
Hmm.
There's just so much. It's crazy. I don't even know where to begin on talking about this matter because it has absolutely, it's took me aback to a point where there's been days I've stood and looked at the statements and looked at everything that's been said and went, I don't even understand what's happening anymore.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. I mean, where do we even start, David?
Well, I think we'll go back to Friday. So Friday was we expected the vote to take place before Friday,
Yep.
but not get a result until maybe sometime this week. And then that was blown out the water by the SPFL deciding to release the results of the vote, but they released results of the vote that wasn't finished, which is just absolutely mental. So that they told us what had happened up to that point, and then it was clear that there was one team whose vote was missing in the Premiership and the Championship, and it led to speculation about who it was. Multiple people thought it was Inverness who were delaying the vote. People thought Ross County were delaying it, and then it was just speculation city, and then it eventually emerged that Dundee were the sort of
Well, the club holding everything back.
yeah, so the whole did they send it, did they not send it? Then there's proof that they did send it, but it didn't get through. Then they emailed saying they didn't want it to count, and then it's just
And
oh
then
my
apparently
God.
this morning they said they did submit it electronically and blah blah blah. There's just there is so much. I don't even know. It's crazy. I can't wrap my head around how it was handled. Look, there's going to be so much we dive into in this episode of the podcast. Like we've got everything. There's going to be personal opinions that I imagine will come out. There's going to be opinions on different clubs and different situations. But the one thing that I guess the talking point of all this on Friday was the manner of how the SPFL have handled it.
Yeah, they handled it absolutely disgracefully, if I'm honest. I think well, first of all, one thing I think people didn't quite understand was the SPFL had asked for all votes to be in by 5 p.m. on Friday. Now, that was a request.
Yep, it wasn't that
It
demand.
wasn't a requirement. In fact, clubs had 28 days to reply to this. So, when it's clear that not all clubs have submitted their vote, to then release the results up until that point just completely, I think undermines the whole process because that could have changed the final team's vote. It could have, and it was clear as day that Neil Doncaster and the SPFL wanted the vote to pass. That was obvious.
Yep.
Um,
There's a reason that the majority of the board put forward the idea.
Yeah, so I don't even. Friday night was nuts because it was just speculation. Saturday was. I spent the entirety of Saturday listening to Radio Scotland. The Sports Sound programme on Radio Scotland on Saturday was some of the best radio I've ever heard in my life. It was just fascinating. They had the Inverness chairman on, giving his sort of thoughts on it, talking about this WhatsApp group, talking about how They had proof that Dundee had written out a no vote. There was picture evidence. It was nuts. It was just absolutely crazy, and I didn't think it could get much more mental than that. I thought it would just be Dundee would come out,
and boy,
address it, and that would be it. Yeah, boy was I wrong.
Yeah, I mean, where we even go from there, there's multiple routes we can go down. We had in the top flight, we know the situation with Rangers releasing statement after statement. Well, we've seen clubs come out such as Falkirk releasing statements, and
the big hitters in this are Hearts, Rangers, Partick Thistle, Dundee, Falkirk, Inverness have had a fair bit to say also. So they're kind of the clubs that have been the most active in terms of what they've had to say. As far as, I think all the allegations is, first of all, Dundee on Saturday, complete radio silence. Nobody could get hold of anyone at Dens Park to find out what was going on. And that continued up until, yesterday. So that was just crazy in itself. So you had a situation where the vote was all but done. The whole thing rested on Dundee and they weren't talking to anyone. So I just thought that was utterly bizarre. Then all the allegations of bullying and bribery and all this nonsense was coming out. It was absolutely mental. Rangers then basically took the SPFL's pants down and had their sort of say. But the SPFL were maintaining. I think it was the Inverness chairman had said that the SPFL had told him that to get prize money and stuff through now, they had to vote for the resolution. Rangers then sort of proved that was rubbish. It was just absolutely nuts. And the surprising thing is, there was a lot of guys in the mainstream media who were agreeing with what Rangers were saying who would never agree with Rangers. So you had like Michael Stewart and Tom English coming out and backing up Rangers' statement. Even myself, I was sitting there reading it and I was like, well, at least somebody's taking the SPFL to task over this, because regardless of who you support, and I know, obviously as a Celtic fan, I know you didn't want the league to end that way, but ultimately,
no, not at all.
You weren't going to be too displeased the vote went through, because ultimately Celtic are now champions. So,
we'll come on to all of that, I suppose. But obviously,
that's what I'm saying. Regardless of who you
fighting,
support, regardless of that, you had to. The way the SPFL handled this is absolutely
there's that fighting chance that we will see the end to a Scottish Premiership season. But do I realistically see that happening? No, not a chance. But I don't necessarily. The Rangers statements is another thing completely. But what I will agree with is the way that the SPFL have handled all of this. There is no denying whoever you support, no matter how it's benefited or even affected your team in a negative way or positive way. It has been a horrendous scene from the guys at the top trying to handle this, and that is just looking at it from a devil's advocate, neutral kind of situation, sitting there going, there's no denying that it's a mess.
Yeah, it's an absolute mess, and this has been coming a long time with the SPFL, I think. Neil Doncaster has been the chief executive, the top man in the Scottish Football Leagues for, I think it's since 2009, it might even be earlier than that. It's since before the leagues changed to the SPFL, he's been the main man.
That's right.
And I would argue, what has he done to improve our game in that time? I would argue not an awful lot. So, this is just, I don't know how he survives this episode.
Well, there's got to be calls for...
Well, there already has been. That was one of the most remarkable things. Rangers on Saturday came out and called for him to be suspended, which, was very strong, but ultimately he's the guy that's overseen this absolute farce, and, there needs to be an investigation into how this was allowed to happen, what the SPFL were telling clubs, because it's clear as day that SPFL weren't telling the clubs the entire truth of the matter. They were telling clubs what they wanted the clubs to hear. So that's just bizarre.
Well, let's move a little bit further down the line, I suppose, and let's get to what it's actually done for the game now. We've summarised the kind of handling of the situation by the SPFL. We've talked about how we got to this point, but what it means for Scottish football. If you've been living under a rock, I'll quickly summarise it. It's been decided that Dundee United and Raith Rovers and Cove Rangers will all be promoted. And it's been decided that Stranraer and Partick Thistle will both go down in their respective divisions. Let's quickly go over this, David. Your quick opinion. I know we discussed what ideally we wanted to see between both ourselves last week what we wanted to see moving forward, and I said how I would love to see the season finish somehow, and you gave your own opinion. Now that it's been finished, especially in a league which affects you more, obviously your team's fate for the season is done. Your season's over. Dunfermline will get up.
I'll be honest with you, I couldn't even tell you what position Dunfermline are in actually just now. I think it's either 6th or 7th. I honestly don't have a clue.
But the fact of the matter is, you'll get your money, you'll stay up in the Championship, and when the next season starts, you'll be ready to go again. But if you're looking at it from a neutral standpoint, what are you thinking right now? Because that's Partick Thistle are going down with a game in hand. Stranraer are going down as well without obviously season's not been finished. Do you think it was the way to go forward? What is your view on it all? As it just kind of, as what we see right now is that this is it done. Obviously we've had Anne Budge come out and say that she's going to try and do something, and we don't know where it's going to go.
We'll come on to that. We'll come on to that.
We'll come on to that. But what is your thoughts right now of what has happened in Scottish football?
I'll be honest, I'm probably going to contradict stuff I said in the last podcast, because my thoughts and opinions on this have changed all weekend long, because
I think everybody's has, to be quite honest.
The one main thing that keeps annoying me about this is the amount of people I've seen come out with solutions, and they're going, it's simple. The amount of people with simple solutions to the most complex situation our game has faced, perhaps ever, is mental. There is no simple solution to this at all.
Not at all.
So let's just get that out of the way. Partick Thistle... Yeah, right. The Partick Thistle one is the one that really, really annoys me, because, for as much as we had to find a way to end it, and Thistle are bottom of the league, maybe we did have to end it, I don't know. But what was am I taking from the weekend, what part of it?
David has suddenly just cut off because of the internet connection between here and Kazakhstan. Right, David, hello, you're back. Right, continue where you were going on. Just start from your point, Partick Thistle.
So yeah, for Partick Thistle, ultimately they're bottom of the league. They've not been great for about 2 years now. So if you had to end the season they're bottom of the league, I don't know. Is it fair? No, of course it's not fair. But the worst thing about it is the reason they've got a game in hand is because they're in the the Caramel Wafer Cup.
Yep.
So they're being punished for. If they'd have won that game in hand, they would have been up in 9th, and Queen of the South would have been bottom. So because they've competed in an SPFL competition, they're being sort of, punished, effectively. Yeah. So that's the worst thing about the whole situation for Partick Thistle. If I was a Dunfermline fan... if Dunfermline were in the same position, I would be absolutely raging at the way...
Of course.
You would be fuming. But again, it all comes back to there's no simple, easy situations. There's no quick, easy fixes for this. Is it fair? No, but not. I don't know. I honestly don't know. The whole thing is a mess. It's a good job that I'm not on the SPFL board, because I honestly wouldn't have a clue what to do. So.
Oh no, there's no. Look, we're right to give them the pelters. We are, but at the same time, this has been an extremely difficult situation. So obviously, down on those 3 divisions, we've had. It's been settled. We know what's happening. Dundee United will be in the Premiership next season, whenever that may kick off. We don't quite know what the format's going to be yet with the Hearts disaster. If we're going to see perhaps 13-team league at this rate.
Well, this is the thing about the. So I do think the fairest option across the board is that you don't relegate anyone. You have league reconstruction. I think that is probably the fairest resolution. There's no doubt in my mind that Dundee United deserve to win the Championship. There's no dispute about that.
Just as it should be the same in the Premiership, may I add?
Yeah, I don't think the gap's quite the same, but it's. I take your point. I don't think, but I did say on the last podcast, fundamentally, I didn't believe that you should just relegate people like that. Mm-hmm. I do kind of still agree with that, but you've got basically Falkirk and Partick Thistle, the 2 clubs who've been harshly dealt with already in the lower league. So Falkirk are just, I think they're either a point behind Wraith or it's goal difference. It's very close anyway. And obviously Thistle I've got a game in hand that could see them go off the bottom. So those 2 clubs are both, being punished. I think for Thistle, that's the absolute worst one. Stranraer are miles off at the bottom of League One. I've heard a lot of people coming out and asking, why have Brecon not been relegated? Well, it's pretty simple. That is the only thing I can't get my head around. Brecon haven't been relegated because it's not an automatic relegation spot, which is the same reason that we're not pursuing the playoffs, because it is a playoff itself. That's why they have not been relegated. That's pretty simple. I don't understand that argument. So yeah, and then there's all this stuff about league reconstruction, which I think we want to come on to, because I think we're both going to have some interesting views on that.
Right, we'll come on to it. Quickly though, do we want to touch on the disaster, the conspiracy theories, and everything that is currently surrounding the top flight? Do we want to have a brief conversation about
you
that?
kick it off. You kick it off.
Well, where do we...
I don't really frequent myself with old firm conspiracy theories. So.
I do my best. I know that maybe times on this show I've came on and not done that. I've came on and I've been pretty strong with statements. I came on here and said the league was done. I came on here and said Celtic were miles better than Rangers. Blah blah.
Yeah,
blah.
you ended up being vilified with that, so we'll let you off.
Yeah, look, the fact of the matter is, Celtic either way deserve their title this season. Rangers fans, I don't know how much they've got to cry about of us getting their 9-in-a-row title. In the Scottish Championship, there is a 14-point gap between Dundee United and Inverness, and Inverness have a game in hand.
Oh, really?
Yep, 14.
I didn't realise that.
And Dundee United are getting their title. Nothing's been said about it, but apparently now, Celtic, who are 13 points clear in the exact same situation, should not be getting theirs.
Well, it's not... who has the game? Do Inverness have a game in hand on Dundee United?
Yes, they do.
Right, okay.
So, we are looking at identical situations. A point within... that's the only difference. There's a point difference between those two situations. But nothing's been said about Dundee United getting given a promotion. Inverness fans aren't crying that they could somehow turn the season around in the remaining games. I have nothing against football fans showing their passion for each team. Look, and in an ideal situation, as every Celtic fan would agree, Celtic do not want to be gifted a title. But if worse comes to worse, you cannot null and void a season where we are that far ahead. We should be champions. We should be getting our title. I would love to play it out, and I hope we do get a situation where we do get to play it out somehow. It doesn't look like it'll be likely, but hopefully so. The talk of conspiracies towards Celtic and corruption and Peter Law having the SPFL in his pocket is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Let's just. I want to make one point really quickly.
On you go.
If you're, there's no way you can sit here and tell me that Peter Lawwell wasn't going around the clubs, try to have a word with them. Every single manager would have been doing that. Anne Budge would have been going around the clubs. Jenny Bretton and Patrick Thistle would have been going around the clubs.
I'm not denying that. Look, Celtic have handled their as I'll quote a great man, Tony Watt, who said on Twitter today, the clubs who have the most to lose have been the quietest during all of this.
How do you mean? I saw that tweet as well. I didn't really understand it.
Well, put it this way: a club like Celtic, who had the chance to go on and win a quadruple treble this season, convincingly win 9 in a row, don't have an asterisk beside the title, have stayed quiet through it all. What have Rangers got to lose? What have Rangers generally got to lose this season? If anything, the season ending now for Rangers is better off than what it would be with them waiting, because they need the financial support right now. They need the money. There is no denying that. So Rangers,
I'm not sure if you could say that Celtic have more to lose than Hearts do, though.
Well, I suppose, because Hearts could go down. But there's been a lot of teams who are sitting quiet. There's teams who are sitting battling to try and be in the top half this season, make a name for themselves. They've not kicked up a fuss.
Yeah, but I think that's ultimately. I think you think of teams like St Johnstone. I think are the perfect example. I'm not sure how it works with them. Are St Johnstone, did they make top six with this, or how is it going to work? It was very nip and tuck between them and Hibs anyway. So teams like Aberdeen as well, who were still fighting for third. Yep. Yes, they're still fighting for stuff, but I think there was a little bit of... There had to be, for me, for some clubs, a little bit
Motherwell, for example.
Our situations aren't that important.
Motherwell, who are battling for third alongside Aberdeen, a team like Livy fighting for the top half, Hibs and St Johnstone within a point of each other. The fuss... I guess Hearts have a genuine reason to kick up quite the fuss, because, yes, they have 8 games to try and save themselves and get out of the relegation zone when they could be just put down, when they are one of the biggest clubs in the country. But genuinely, I don't understand this mindset from the Rangers support. And this isn't me taking a dig at Rangers support.
Yes, it is.
Well, it is. But, well, I just don't understand, because the season finishes right now, or with 38 games played, and nothing changes for Rangers. They don't get a Scottish Cup because they're out. They don't finish first because they can't. They literally... It will not happen. Unless they turn into the Govan Globetrotters, it's not going to happen. I don't see any way out. Look, the SPFL have handled this horrendously. We've been over that, right? We've talked about it. And I understand the Rangers fans' frustrations and their doubt towards the SPFL towards it, right? But with 81% of the clubs backing this proposal and this is even it was close to 81 without Dundee as well.
Yeah.
It was backed by the rest of the country. How is there a corruption towards Celtic? It's not a popular decision. I understand that. This was a scenario that none of us would have wanted, and we couldn't even dream in a million years of happening. But what was the alternative? If Rangers were wanting the money, which they've spoke about a couple of times, right? And as there's clubs risking going into administration, it's extremely harsh on some clubs like Partick Thistle. I get that. I really do understand that. This is it's a horrible scenario. But if there was a risk of teams around the country going into administration, the SPFL's options were limited, and you've already touched on that yourself. It's not simple. There was no simple option. It is difficult, but what baffles me is the cries of, look, Peter Law is controlling everything. Look, we're 13 points clear. The title was always going to be Celtic's.
Yeah, I agree with the fact that Rangers, perhaps moaning about the title being awarded is a bit out there, because it was going to be a far stretch of the imagination to imagine Rangers would come back and win the title, which was a very out there thought. Mm-hmm. However, I can understand why some of them would be so desperate to take the SPFL to task over this, because I think that needs to happen. I also said last week I don't think that you should. I don't really agree with fundamentally handing league titles out to teams, but this is an unprecedented situation, and we don't really have an awful lot of alternative. It's a tough one. I do think that if it was the other way around, though, I do think if Rangers had been handed this title,
put the shoe on the other foot, and there would be a cry as well from Celtic supporters.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. You can't, with Old Firm fans, the situation is always point scoring, greeting, and I'm one of them. There's no denying that. In this situation, if it was on the other foot, I would love to sit down and say, look, Rangers are 13 clear, give them their title, because I think that would be fair. But obviously, if I put myself in that situation,
you never would. Yeah.
It's probably realistically, can I say that would happen? I don't know, but it's so difficult, because this is a team who have worked so hard. Neil Lennon has. Obviously, you've seen the work that's went in from Neil Lennon, a guy who was doubted so much, and to have his title torn from him after a majority of the season being played and being 13 points clear would be... I don't know about you, David. From a neutral point of view, I don't know what you would think is more fair, but for me, I think it would be more cruel to null and void a season for Celtic in that situation than gift Celtic a title for a team like Rangers in their situation.
Well, I don't think null and void was really an option at all. I think both of them situations would have been slightly unfair, but I think we all maintained from the start that no matter what happens, we need to have a finish to this season. I still think, I know the TV deal is going to make that difficult, but I don't think you could have just cancelled everything that's happened so far. The null and void argument for me was just never viable. Yep. I mean, to say that everything we've seen since last August didn't happen. Yeah. That's not how football works. It did happen. We were all there.
Because then what happens with a situation and say the League Cup? Does Celtic just get the League Cup taken from them? Because that was
exactly.
I know that's not an SPFL competition.
Well, I'd argue that Celtic winning that League Cup final was more of a robbery than them being handing the league title.
There you go. Spot on. Look, sometimes things like a club like Falkirk has reluctantly accepted. They use the words reluctantly accept the SPFL vote. Look, if they can take it in that situation, Rangers fans should be pulling up their pants and taking it here, because they were never...
It's all to do with the pressure of 9 in a row, though, and 10 in a row. It's a unique pressure.
If they're that desperate to end it, their team, their players, their manager, their everything should be going out and doing it. They shouldn't be relying on the board deciding who gets the title and who doesn't. If they're that big a team and they're that good, then next season prove it on the Park Rangers. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, and I think if this was Celtic's second league title in a row, I don't think we would have seen as much fuss as we have done. But it's just the thing about 9 in a row, isn't it?
Yep.
Can we move on to league reconstruction now? Because I really want to delve into
league reconstruction. On we go. You kick it off since you're eager.
Okay, so league reconstruction for me is something that I've advocated for a long time before this situation even arose. We discussed it briefly last week, and I think yesterday it came out that in the SPFL statement, whilst the vote had passed, there was now a reconstruction sort of task force set up that was going to be chaired by Anne Budge and someone from Hamilton. I think it might have been Hamilton chairman. I can't remember his name. I apologise. Is he the chairman of Hamilton?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, I should have known that. Apologies. So they are tasked with sort of putting forward a resolution for league reconstruction. So they're all talking about 13 teams next season or 14 teams, that for me is just absolutely pointless. If you're going to do league reconstruction, and they're talking about how it might just be for one season, 16 at least, 16 or 18. That's what the fans would want.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I know the powers that be don't want that because they're never going to lose their 4 Old Firms a season. That's never going to happen. Sky are not going to pay the same money to only have 2 Old Firm games, and sadly that's what it comes down to because that is seen as more important than the fans that go to games. Yes. I mean, you as a Celtic fan would instead of going to St Mirren twice a season, you'd either go to St Mirren once or go somewhere new.
I'd love to go down to East End Park or
exactly.
Like that. So, I'd love it. I'm sick of seeing the same stadiums. I
think for me, Anne Budge, I think weeks before this all kicked off, when we were talking about after the season had been suspended and stuff like that, Anne Budge came out and said this was a great chance for league reconstruction. You know, we've been talking about it for a long time. This is a chance to actually do it. And from what she said back then, it was more of like a change the game for the good in the long term kind of thing. But that seems to be off the table now. It seems to me like now they're just talking about how can we, you know, stop Hearts going down this season. That seems to be the reason for league reconstruction, which is bizarre. This whole notion that Hearts in the Championship is somehow to the huge detriment of Scottish football, I find utterly bizarre. Because last time Hearts were in the Championship, we had Hearts, Rangers and Hibs in the Championship back then.
Very exciting season.
The Championship was great. You also had, during that time that those teams were struggling, you had teams like St Johnstone, Aberdeen winning cups, Ross County, Inverness winning cups. You tell me, for those teams and those supporters, that Scottish football was at the pits back then? No.
David has cut out once more, but the point I believe he was trying to make was, at that point in time when Hearts were in the Championship, it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah, so it definitely wasn't. I
mean, for the people in charge of Hearts, of course, a club which, once again, financially probably isn't in the scenario they'd want to be in.
Yeah, but if Hearts go down, they're not going to be down for much more than one season. No. They'll back up next year anyway.
You'd imagine they would right back up.
The thing that nobody is thinking about, see the difference for a club like Arbroath, or a club like even like Dunfermline, to have 2 times next season Hearts come to East End Park and bring 4,000 fans. The difference that will make to us financially, it's massive. It's absolutely massive, and that is what's getting completely forgotten about. It's like the guys at the top of the game. What happens to the Premiership? It's like Hearts, Hibs, Rangers, Aberdeen, Celtic. It's like we think that Scottish football in a good place has to rely on what happens to those sort of big clubs. It's just nonsense. And also, like stuff like the Partick Thistle dropping down to League One. I heard people say if we go to a 14, 16 team top flight, we'll get Thistle, Falkirk, Wraith all up into the Championship. What happens to teams like Stranraer, Forfar, or Peterhead in League One, who will be banking on having the likes of Partick Thistle and Falkirk bringing big crowds to their stadiums next season? We just forget about them. Does that not matter? I don't. So again, it's more of this sort of people coming out with simple solutions to the most complex situation we've ever found ourselves in, and it does my head in, to be honest.
It's just I don't know who in the right mind will be the one to fix this. To come up with a solution that everybody is pleased by. We're not going to please everyone. Let's deal with that reality. Let's sit down. Look, something that pleases Celtic fans, no matter how good or bad it is not going to please Rangers fans. Something that pleases Rangers fans, no matter how good or bad it is, isn't going to please Celtic fans. And the same goes all around the country. There will be people who will ultimately be happy at league reconstruction, or people won't be happy at league reconstruction. And it's just going to it's going to be like a game of table tennis that will last all night long.
Yeah, and also that's going to lead to another vote. I've heard people say that they don't think Hearts are going to go down because this will pass. I'm not convinced this vote will pass. But if they come forward with, say, a 14-team league next season, I don't think that's going to pass.
I think a 14-team league is futile in my opinion.
Because then how do you? So then you'd have Hearts would be team 13. Who's team 14?
Did it just
is it Inverness?
So
we scrap the whole notion of the playoffs and award second automatic promotion. Doesn't make any sense to me at all.
I believe, as you said right off the top of your statement when we started speaking about this, 14 team, no, why not 16, why not 18? If they're going to do it right, and get it to a standard which makes, it'll put a lot of smiles on faces, maybe not so much in the bigger clubs who don't really, like the Aberdeens and Celtics and Rangers, who it doesn't affect too much, but certainly for those who've been affected below, it's just, I don't know where we go for.
If they do go with this notion of a 13-team league simply just to keep Hearts in the Premiership, that to me is utterly scandalous, because then what, are we going to have an 11-team championship next season to keep Partick Thistle in? Are we going to have an 11-team League One to keep Stranraer in? That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
And that is where the cries will come out yet again from people of corruption and favouritism towards certain clubs. Like you just can't win them all. I don't know if David's cut out again, but don't know what his point back would have been. But
hit me again.
I was saying, that's where the kind of cries of corruption and favouritism will come out again. Why should Hearts get given? Would Hearts say it was Hamilton at the bottom of the table? Would they have been given the same treatment as what Hearts are given right now?
Listen, if it was Hamilton and Alloa at the bottom of the Championship and the Premiership, this wouldn't be a massive issue. Mm-hmm. It's the sad reality of Scottish football that certain clubs have more power than others. That's just a fact. Money talks. Ultimately, if it was Hamilton and Alloa going down, nobody would be batting an eyelid about this.
Well, we've covered the kind of reconstruction part. I don't know if did you put out something for questions in the story last night, David?
I did, but a lot of them were just. I put it out like an hour ago, so we didn't really get it.
Ah, okay.
And there was a guy who wanted to know if you'd be his dad.
Well, if we get 9 in a row, then we'll seriously consider it.
Some guys asked if he said, "Do you like marmalade?" There's this same guy who on Instagram, every time we put one of these up, comments the word marmalade. I don't understand it.
Well, I must admit I don't like marmalade.
Marmalade,
the band Marmalade are okay. Famous.
I didn't even know there was a band. They can't be that famous.
They have a cover of Obladi Oblada.
Oh, okay.
I believe they might be from Glasgow. Interesting fact of the day. I have a feeling they're from Glasgow.
That Obladi Oblada would be a great sort of theme tune for Scottish football just now, wouldn't it?
Oh, of course it would. Marmalade. Yep, they were from Glasgow. I knew that. They were from Glasgow.
What else can we touch on? So another thing I wanted to bring up. So Rangers and the SPFL have kind of gone to war in the past 3-4 days. Rangers have come out and slagged the SPFL to the heavens. Rangers have a representative on the SPFL board. So, how do...
David has once again lost connection through the powers that be over us.
Know about that straight away.
Right, you need to go back to the top now, David. The SPFL board and Rangers, they have someone there. Your point, I was sounding intrigued. I was liking where this was going. Take it back to the top now.
So they've got a representative of the board. So how do the Rangers, surely they would know straight away whatever the SPFL board are doing.
I know.
Surely... You'd
feel like they have first, sort of, alright, they can take that back to their club and let them know before the rest of the SPFL knows, considering they have got someone there.
Yeah, that's what I just find bizarre.
Look, they want to push their own sort of, I don't want to use the word agenda, it's not really an agenda. They want to push all their ideas forward and then launch all these investigations and blah, 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 blah. Gerard was coming out this morning talking about there should be an independent investigation. They've got their guy there. So what's happening? Why is there not been more of a debate at the SPFL itself before all this does happen? If Rangers themselves do not agree or don't like where the situation is headed,
you mentioned agendas and stuff, right? I'm not having it for 1 minute. I think Inverness chairman had come out and said that the reason he voted against it was because he couldn't relegate Partick Thistle. I'm not having that at all, by the way, not at all. The reason he voted against that is because his team is in second and have a chance of going up this season. I'm not buying it. No. All these teams were in it for their own gain, and I'm not buying it that we're doing it out of the goodness of their heart.
No, not a Look, I think even if a club like Partick Thistle, just say it was Partick Thistle, for example, if a club like Partick Thistle got their chairman to come out and release a statement saying, look, we desperately need this vote to go in our favour. We're in jeopardy, we're in financial insecurity, blah, 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 blah. Whatever excuses under the sun. Every single club's still going to vote in the best interest of their own.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's no way. I mean, maybe because the votes aren't so much confidential, it's not maybe as...
But you'd want your club to do that as well. You wouldn't want your club to vote against the best interests of your club.
No, you've got to... Every club will be... You've got to admit that. I think every chairman should just be honest and transparent with everyone involved. That they're always going to be looking out for the best interest of the club. But at the end of the day, that's what your fans will be wanting as well. I would be hoping that Peter Law would be voting for the best interests of Celtic.
Yeah, I think.
Sure, you'd be thinking the same with Dunfermline.
Yeah, well, ultimately for us, it doesn't. The vote didn't make an awful lot of difference to us. I wasn't really fussed either way. I think ultimately for us, money's a big thing. We needed some money in the door, so. we weren't going to go up, we weren't going to go down, so it doesn't make a great deal of difference. The big, for Dunfermline, the thing that'll really sort of hamper us is if, well, actually it won't really, because we're in a lucky situation, whereas if Wraith and Falkirk did come up, for us they are big attendances because they're rival games and stuff. So for us it doesn't make a great deal of difference. One thing I want to bring up also is, can you believe that SPFL chairmen are doing their business in WhatsApp groups?
That is madness.
Who do you think the jokers are in that WhatsApp group? I want to see like the stuff in that group. I think it would be class.
I mean, I bet Jan Budge is a wee dirty. She's definitely got something going on.
Oh my god!
Is it Dempster who's in charge of Hibs?
Who?
Leanne Dempster. Is that
Leanne Dempster's in charge of Hibs? Yeah.
Oh, I want to see the back and forth between her and Big Budgie.
On Derby Day, that'd be good. Like, I also like the notion that they also have like a Snapchat group. So like game days, you've got like, if like Partick Thistle are playing Dunfermline, Ross McArthur's like sending Jerry Britton videos of how many goals Nisbet scored against Thistle this season, stuff like that.
On it. Who's on it? We snap for Peter Lowell just asking.
Yeah, with a bottle of MD 2020. Who's
on it? I know. It's mad. Like, the fake WhatsApp conversations is something we've not even touched on.
Gerard over the last few months, like every Saturday at like 5 PM, it's just been like streaks, no replies from Stephen Gerrard.
Look, I can't believe that for a fact that is done. That is absolute madness. But the fake WhatsApp conversations, what do you think, Mel, David?
So I saw this yesterday, and I said earlier on that I switched my phone on and the world was going mad. So there was a WhatsApp transcript doing the rounds of the Championship chairman talking, and allegations of Dunfermline chairman Ross McArthur threatening them into voting for it. First of all, Dunfermline that have no leverage to threaten any club at all that I can think of. What do we have to? That makes no sense. It's clearly the worst Photoshop job you've seen ever.
Oh, aye.
It's pretty horrific.
As a man who has to use Photoshop for
your Instagram photos
and stuff, and who do you think I am? Excuse me. I know I dropped myself a few stone and then put it up. But look, for someone who uses Photoshop for my thumbnails and such, you can just look at it. You know it's fake. It's as plain as the nose in your own face.
And also, Ross McArthur, Dunfermline chairman, is like the most. He doesn't strike you as the threatening type at all. So I just thought the thing was a bit bizarre. But there was a couple of great stuff going around. Dunfermline fans were enjoying that kind of we run the championship kind of thing. So
who knows? Maybe he's got a wee Ted Bundy vibe about him. You know.
You're fair flying out the accusations today. First it was Anne Budge getting it, and now it's him. God.
I'm not going to stop until there's justice served. And, I mean, I don't think I'm that far off, if you ask me. I think there could be.
Yeah, so I don't even know where else to go with this.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, Scottish football will always be the one and only which constantly grabs the mind and imagination like no other.
Quickly, let's just end on this, right? Hit me right now. Your ideal solution that you think is fair and just, and does its best to please everyone. What do you think the solution should be regarding league reconstruction or whatever?
Jesus, well, at this point, it's honestly it's beyond my comprehension of what is a one that keeps everyone happy. It really is. I don't know what that is. But if I was to take if God came to me, or sorry, Neil Doncaster, who you could consider God, came to me and he said, right, Ryan, you've got the final call, son, on you go. Look, I don't know, man. I don't even know where I'd go. I think I would turn down the route of saying, right, let's get this sorted and let's do our darn best and let's let teams finish this season without Sky intruding, and let's get the seasons finished to completion behind closed doors or whatever we have to do. If that's in August, let it be in August. Look, we need to shut up people crying about titles and relegations being handed out. We need to get everything over the line somehow. It's beyond my mind what can even be done at this point. Realistically,
right? Okay. Let me hit you with this. Right.
Right. Go.
This is the solution. Right. You go for next. As we resume football, we go with an 18-team top flight. You've Celtic, Rangers, Motherwell, Aberdeen, Livingston, Hibs, St Johnstone, Kelly, St Mirren, Ross County, Accies, Hearts, Dundee United, Inverness, Dundee, Ayr, Dunfermline, and Arbroath.
Oh,
There's
you're
your
not
top
doing
flight.
that to get to Dunfermline in there.
No. There's your top
I'm
flight,
sure,
18 teams. Then you have an 18-team championship, and then you have League One and League. You've got League One that's split into two. You've got a North and South section. So then you bring up the Highland League teams, you bring up Lowland League teams, and there you are. You've got a pyramid system. Bang.
And I would be all for that. That would be.
I actually stole that. I stole that from.
I've seen the tweet.
Have you? All right. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen
Fair
it.
enough.
Fair play to.
But I thought it was great. I thought it was great.
I couldn't knock that back. I would like that.
But it's never going to happen because it is inventive. It's fresh.
It's also something that would have to go through UEFA and all the likes. So
well, I don't know if it would. Oh, that was one point I wanted to make earlier. So the SPFL is a members' organisation. So that means that the members get to decide what happens within that organisation. So if there were rules and stuff in place that said that they couldn't get prize money early, the members could vote to change those rules. But that wasn't even considered.
Mm-hmm.
The SPFL, this is the biggest flaw, they presented that vote as it was either that or you're not getting any money, which was ridiculous.
Continuous bafflement.
Yeah.
We had to cut off for a moment there due to
technical difficulties.
Yeah, technical difficulties. What was it you were saying anyway, David?
Ryan's a fashion reader, aren't you, son?
Wrap up your point.
So basically, the SPFL have made an absolute James Blunt of this. They've presented last week's resolution as the only way to end this and divvy out prize money, which has turned out to be a load of rubbish. The next few weeks are going to be filled with more revelations about how the whole process was conducted, and I want to see the SPFL held to account. And if that means Rangers going to tirade, then I'm all for it. If it means that we find out what happened and the guys who have made a mess of this are held to account. Ultimately,
I just want there to be peace and quiet. That's all I want.
Do you? I'm actually quite enjoying this because I haven't talked about like the rest of the goings on in the world for ages now because I've been so sort of, indulged by all this. Like the group chats have been rife with this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I want to see what Anne Budge's got in mind. I hope to God she's not going to come out and be like, we want a 13-team top flight just so Hearts don't get relegated, because that would just be nonsense.
Which is going to happen.
Oh, just I hope not. I hope, if we had a good leadership in charge of our game up here, they would use this horrendous situation we find ourselves in for the long-term betterment of our game. However, it is not going to happen because you can guarantee that in 2 years' time, we'll be sitting here with the usual 12-team top flight, 4 Old Firms and Chris Boyds and Chris Commons talking rubbish on Sky about the game, and nothing will have changed. So there we are.
Well, you've said it, son. Is that us? Are we ready to wrap up the show, or is there anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think I'm pretty much done. I just want to see Celtic win 9 in a row, mate.
9.5. Sorry, 8.5.
9.5 if you want, mate. I'll take the extra half. I'm no bored.
Oh, God.
Hand it over. Right, anyway, if you do want to keep up with everything going on and you want to see more, let us know in the comments. Get following on the socials. We'll hopefully be out with more content, more stuff as the news progresses.
We've almost definitely missed out loads of stuff because there's been so much to cover.
There's been so much to cover. Absolute tons. And hopefully we'll cover more over the next couple of weeks with more podcasts. But everything's on screen. David, thank you very much for joining me, son.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
As always. And I will see you all next time.